Good evening, Graham, and good evening, Anthony, and happy Eastertide.
I've got a happy Easter message, Charles.
It's good to hear because there's strong.
It it,
Today's
com- it,
very
co-
strong on those messages. So, what's yours?
it well, it comes from one of those press release PR company emails that get sent to the Harrock Advertiser,
Oh,
and
yes.
the subject bar on the email says this, and I think this is really applicable to Yorkshire and Yorkshire weather.
Mm.
Easter hot tub season. Yeah, so that's already a bit strange start. Like I don't remember everybody rushing for the hot tubs at Easter in Yorkshire, or in fact anywhere in Britain. And then
Mm.
it says Easter hot tub season brings safety warning from Legionella expert. Now that's a cheery Easter message, if ever I heard one.
That's extraordinary. I mean, it's a time, of course, though, when we are now so for short for time for everything that they can't even give Storm Dave a proper name of Storm David.
Well, they should just call it Storm D.
Storm D. That'll happen next.
Yeah.
But I thought, why give such a pedantically average name to a storm?
Because they realised it wouldn't really be a proper storm. Virtually nothing's happened. The weatherman tonight said that because of Storm Dave, some trees had come down. I mean, if that's the level of news we're now resorting to.
That's usually what happens in a storm. I mean, obviously, fine, I get that. But the thing is, you can't choose a storm title posthumously, Graham. You throw the title out there right at the start of it. And I think that if
But,
you give a
yeah,
storm the name Dave, it ain't going to turn out to be a great storm because, frankly, it's a bit of a non-starter for a name for a storm.
it's a bit of a damp squib, but well, weather is just educated guessing anyway. So it's a bit of a gamble when you name a storm in advance because it could turn out to be nothing or it could turn out to be huge. So,
I just think
it's a tricky
give
business.
it some Greek classical names, some Roman classical names, some Shakespearean names. Just think that'd be a lot more fun. Actually, why don't you call a storm Prospero?
That's too classy.
Okay, well, I'm not withdrawing it. I'm still making that suggestion. Now, talking of names, Graham, our first topic tonight is the cult that won't die. Garth Marenghi. He's had the
So,
last on stage at Leeds City Varieties more than 20 years after his solitary TV series. I'm trying to remember Garth Marenghi. You might have to
yeah.
refresh my memory.
Well, he was on Channel 4 in that sort of short-lived era of the late 90s, early noughties,
Hmm.
where Chris Morris programs were always
Oh,
happening
yes. Yes.
before the IT crowd or the IT crowd came along.
Hmm.
And Garth Marenghi's Dark Place ran for only one series. And Garth Marenghi, which is only an act, there is no real Garth Marenghi, although he does still publish books under that name. Anyway, Garth Marenghi was a low budget horror author of a
Hmm.
sort of like actorly, slightly over the top, but not cheesy fashion,
Hmm.
played by Matthew Holness. And in that series, it ran for one series. Matt
Hmm.
Berry played a significant role as well. So
Uh-huh.
it had a good pedigree and it was really good. And then it never happened again. And I assumed that Matthew Holness or Garth Marenghi had disappeared and had never happened again. But it turns out he's actually been quietly touring Britain a lot since then to popular acclaim from his hardcore cult fan base. And he's been writing books under the pseudonym Garth Marenghi, which
Hmm.
have been quietly successful as well. So his latest tour, which I saw at Leeds City Varieties last week, is him standing on stage reading passages from his books and doing a Q&A. And I wouldn't quite call it stand-up, but just talking to the audience and being funny in a sort of like strange literate fashion.
So he doesn't fit in with any particular time. He is of his own.
Well, he's a bit like Matt Berry. Like Matt Berry's very actorly, and
Yes.
he always plays someone who's slightly pompous and full of himself,
Hmm.
but also slightly ridiculous. And so Garth
Sounds like
Marenghi's in
me.
that Matt Berry Toast of London type mode, although he did it before Matt Berry did Toast of London.
Hmm.
And it's what's really good about it is that he's now about 50 years old, Matthew Holness. He's clearly a super literate guy, really intelligent. So what he's doing taps into a lot of strands in British comedy history, going all the way back to Beyond the Fringe, and that was the week that was.
Hmm.
And you can see that he could do stand up because he was very funny, very bright, and very quick. But he chooses not to just be a stand up comedian. He's in character most of the time. with a little wink in his eye. So
And his
and
topics?
he's
His topics?
well, he plays himself,
Mm,
and he has all these surreal adventures, and there's a lot of Latin wordplay, a lot of clever but surreal story writing, a bit sort of surreal, a bit sci-fi, a bit horror. Ridiculous. You could see the Inside Number Nine, that long-running comedy series on BBC Two
yes.
by the guys from League of Gentlemen. You
Mm,
can see where it got its ideas from because Garth Marenghi is basically an Inside Nine script,
mm.
you know, 10 years before they first did Inside Number Nine. So it's very impressive in terms of like, use of words and language. And on top of that, he's also got a slight strain of Michael Moorcock, the great sci-fi counterculture British writer of the 60s and 70s and
Yeah.
onwards. And
Mm,
especially Garth Marenghi is a bit like Michael Moorcock's Jerry Cornelius character. And
mm.
Jerry Cornelius is set in the future. And again, he's like a heroic figure who has lots of surreal adventures and he's full of himself. But he's also got slightly his tongue in his cheek the whole time as well. And it came to the Q&A bit, and I was going to ask him that question, like, are you a fan of Michael Moorcock? But the rest of the questions were, I mean, some they were frankly bonkers. They were just only real, only a cult hero would have fans who asked him such crazy questions. And so I decided that I couldn't be bothered asking him that Michael Moorcock question. It was way too serious for the occasion. But then he started criticizing the Scots, and it turns out that criticizing the Scots is from a Garth Marenghi episode, and it's
Oh,
not really meant to be hostile to Scotland.
no.
But because he started on that, I thought, well, I'll liven things up a bit. So when he started criticizing the Scots, I shouted out, "I'm Scottish,"
How did that go down,
and then
Graham?
he paused and stopped and said, "I will be sending you a piece of shortbread and an envelope tomorrow, sir," in a sort of like pompous English voice. And then I turned to my friend James Littlewood
Mm.
and Ken and started chatting about that. And I didn't know that he was still talking to me, Garth Marenghi. And so he said, he's not even listening to me. So, so I tried to apologize to the act for not actually listening to him whilst chatting to my friends instead. So I sort of blew that one.
So, Graham, could you envisage ever his return to a television screen?
I could. The slight problem with Garth Marenghi is that he's a one note character.
Mm.
And I think, and Matt Berry's too much like him. So if I was going to redo, with my vast experience of writing TV series and making movies, if I was going to do a new Garth Marenghi on screen, I would cast a sidekick or a strong supporting actor or actress who had a different tone to the character than Garth Marenghi has. I think he needs someone else to play off to make it more accessible. That's why it's a cult. It appeals to a certain number of people who absolutely love it, and everybody else finds it a bit, a bit wordy. There's no telegraph jokes. The humor's all, it's not shouted out. You have to work out it's funny really, and it is funny. So a more accessible character to balance them off might make it a hit. But what the hell do I know?
I mean, it's very much a Leeds City Varieties act. This is
Mm.
not. I mean, that's the scale. Not a Leeds Grand Theatre. It's varieties.
It's not a Leeds Arena tour material for
No,
certain.
no.
But, he's in that lineage of, like Monty Python, League of Gentlemen, all the great alternative, surreal, intelligent comedy that Britain has done so well for so many decades. He's in that lineage. And Garth Marenghi himself is a great character. And Matthew Holness's acting of Garth Marenghi is brilliant. So I really enjoyed it.
Do we know if this is part of a tour? Presumably, it
Yeah,
is.
he's doing a tour. He does quite a few tours, but he does book signings because his published books, this one was called This Bursted Earth Book Tour, because he actually has written a book called This Bursted Earth in the character of Garth Marenghi. And they sell copies. And so the ironic thing was that he's on stage at City of Varieties in Leeds, pretend to be an author. But when we left to go to a bar, we walked out the front door and we looked back into the venue, and he was in the foyer signing
Signing
copy of his
books.
new book. So he'd gone from being someone pretending to be an author on stage to being someone in real life actually who was an author signing books.
But he does the books under his nom de plume.
He's nom de plume. Yeah, he goes around being Garth Marenghi.
So you wouldn't go up to him and say, "I'm that Scotsman, Matthew. I want to need to talk with you now."
I think if I tried that, he'd stay in character and say something witty in return, which didn't tell me anything and didn't answer my question. I think that's what he'd do.
And I mean, had you seen him all those years ago? I mean, presumably you watched the TV series all those years ago. Was this the first time you'd seen him on stage?
Yeah, never seen him live before. And he was as good as he was 20 years ago, or however
Mm.
long it was, 23 years ago, 22 years ago. Yeah, he was in fine form.
I mean, on one level, I think it's good that a career can be sustained, sort of in the shadows. I mean, cult status is nothing to be frightened of. There's a lot of original thought in cult status. It's in its own way, it's as valid as a comedian who plays to 15,000 people in an arena. Probably more so in many ways because it's more guaranteed to be an independent voice, a more original voice, probably not rooted in some form of commercial necessity, but actually is driven by something more honest, if you like.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that Garth Marenghi, the character, is mocking being a hero. You know, he's
Mm.
supposed to be a hero, but he's also a bit ridiculous. But in real life, the man playing Garth Marenghi is quite heroic that he's still doing it and attracting audiences more than 20 years later. That's pretty heroic in itself.
I'm not making a direct comparison with John Shuttleworth, but Graham Fellows is long-running character, who now,
Mm.
interestingly, Graham is now older than he actually plays.
Yeah. I remember when we first saw John Shuttleworth live, we
Yeah,
thought, God, he's made himself look really old.
which he was. Now Graham makes him actually look a little younger than he is. I think possibly just, but the only reason I'm making that comparison, and because again, Graham, he doesn't operate in the shadows. That would be ridiculous. I mean, he's done other characters as well, and John Shuttleworth's had television series and has had radio series, etc. But from the point of view that you can actually sustain without playing the arenas, is the point I'm making here.
Mm. Well, he's a one-man show. I mean, he travels light. There weren't many props,
Mm,
maybe a cane and a
mm,
book and a guitar, which he played briefly. But there was no
mm.
visuals. There was no film behind him.
No,
It was, you can see that, whatever money he's making goes entirely to him
yeah,
or mostly to him.
pared
So
back
that'll
to
help
pared
him
back to the
sustain a
minimum.
career.
Mm.
Mm, mm.
Living out of a suitcase and spending the rest of the
But,
time writing on a typewriter. Yeah.
but Garth Marenghi's Dark Places was set in shadows. So the
Mm,
shadows is where the character lives anyway.
mm. So actually, he's very much at home in those shadows.
Yeah, you can also see influences in Garth Marenghi from those Dario Argento great Italian horror movies of the
Ah, yes,
70s and 80s, like
yes,
Suspiria.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, thank you for introducing me to. Is it Gareth, not Garth? Is that right, Gareth?
It's not Gareth would be a Welsh version, it's Garth.
It is Garth. Right.
Mm.
Excellent. Now, Graham, some time ago, and by the way, thank you very much for the Christmas present from you that's arrived today, having seen you this morning.
I
Um,
like to be prompt.
I know. My Christmas present to you, however, Mr. Mark Ronson's Night People memoir, which you've been steadily making your way through. And it's provoked this question: is a DJ interesting enough to sustain a book? Well, some people said last night a DJ saved my life. So let's put it into perspective.
Well, his book's still in the shops, Night People, How to Be a DJ in 90s New York City. And
Still in
it's
the window
published by,
still in the window in the little Apple bookshop in York with signed copies available. Yeah.
well, exactly. And it's published by Penguin Random House, as almost everything is.
Mm.
So this is a big deal. And so when you kindly got me the book, I read the fly sheet, and it says this: Lady Gaga, Adele, Amy Winehouse, Dua Lipa, Bruno Mars, Miley Cyrus, the Barbie soundtrack. Mark Ronson's musical fingerprints are everywhere in our pop culture. Now comes his electrifying memoir, which captures the music, characters, escapades, and raw emotional journey of his DJ days in 90s New York. So that's a big sell. That's a really bigging up the contents. But I'm on 100 page 166 now, And if I
Mm.
may read you an extract
You
from
may.
Night People by Mark Ronson, I'd
Here,
like you
let's
to
know.
decide
Graham will now
whether,
read an extract.
yeah,
Mm.
I'd like to decide whether the extract of the book matches the rhetoric of the fly sheet. This was it, the thing been preparing for all week. Time to put my battle plan into motion. I launched the assault with It's All About the Benjamins by Puff the Locks, Little Kim and Biggie. The room erupted as Barry White's ominous one-note guitar riff and slowed down disco hi-hats ignited the crowd. The front line was secured, morale was high. As the Locks traded verses, I prepared my next move, All About the Benjamins Shot Collar remix, a corny hard rock remix redeemed only by Dave Grohl's thundering drums. I lined it with the current beat. In my headphones, Little Kim rapped over tinny processed metal guitars, and panic crept in. This maneuver felt reckless, but retreat was not an option. With a calculated flick of both wrists, I executed the switch to the rock remix at the top of Biggie's verse. Miraculously, the crowd remained locked in, rapping along in unison. Whether they noticed the beat change or not, the line held. I survived to fight the next phase. So, how exciting did you find that, or how interesting
I
did you
would
find
say
that?
that with the DJ, it really isn't about them. It's about what the effect that they create, and therefore, actually, that is as boring as a list of ingredients to create a
Yeah,
fantastic
it was like a
pudding.
chef's book. Yeah.
And I see absolutely no point in that. What matters with him is the stories that he tells about the people that he works with. In
Yeah,
particular, stories about
yeah.
working with Amy Winehouse, for whom that second
They,
album, that remarkable album, really is as much about his creativity as it is about Amy's. That
yeah,
should be much
yeah.
more interesting than hearing a bloke talking about how he dropped this and then he dropped that and then he changed the. I'm just boring, boring.
Well, the problem is that the book only does in the 1990s, so we haven't got Amy Winehouse involved yet. So it's about his rise. The second problem with the book, to me, apart from the fact that talking about mixing live on the decks is like a chef with
Mm.
these like recipes,
Yep.
talking about getting like 10 pounds of carrots thinly sliced. It's not interesting reading. Apart from that problem, the other problem is that Mark Ronson is a winner and very successful.
Yep.
And in the book, it doesn't say hardly anything about anybody you've heard of that is that interesting because I assume that to say interesting things would be to insult them. And he still lives in this world
Mm.
and works in this world and likes being successful. So it's hardly a warts and all.
I
So
mean,
again, you sort of
I got you
lose.
the book, Graham, because one, it was his name. Two, I love the pink cover, and that was about
Mm,
it. And I just thought it might
mm,
have been an interesting story, but
mm.
also because of exactly the question that you're asking: is a DJ interesting enough to sustain a book? So I kind of knew that you once I gave you this book, this kind of question would emerge.
Yeah, well, good choice of book. I'm interested in it. It's worth reading. But I think the problem with DJs is that the only time a DJ book ends up interesting is when he's talking about the culture that produced the DJ. So
Yeah.
when Dave Haslam writes books about Manchester
Yes.
in the 80s and 90s, because that came from a street up culture
Mm.
which he was part of and which he believed in. He wasn't just trying to like get the crowd to dance. He wasn't just trying to be successful. There was a sort of like cultural, political aspect to rave music and Hacienda Club in Manchester and the British rave scene, which Dave Haslam believed in. So
Mhm.
therefore, Dave's books are interesting because he's talking about more than just putting on some records that the crowd loved. So I think Matt Ronson's book is a product of a different music scene and a different time that culturally was doesn't mean anything to anybody except to people who went to those nightclubs and saw him DJ.
Which is not really the. I mean, Studio 54 is the nightclub story in New York, isn't it? So this really
Yeah, but
isn't.
when you see documentaries about Studio 54, apart from going on about the celebrities who were there, it's
Mm.
mainly about the sex, the drugs, the crimes, the arrests.
And the
It's
horse.
not about the music.
Mm.
If they just did a book about the music at Studio 54, or the documentary was only about the music, they wouldn't get made. They have to throw in all that extra stuff.
But,
And Night People doesn't want to do that because for
no.
the reasons I've already outlined.
Does he capture the
So you're not going.
flavor? Does he capture the flavor of the people who are the night people that go to listen to a DJ at work? Does he talk about them?
No, no, it captures the flavor of someone who's obsessed with being a successful DJ. If you want to know what it's like to try obsessively, non-stop, 100% commitment to being a successful DJ,
Mm.
well, that tells you a lot about that person. And of course, that person is Matt Ronson. So you do learn about Matt Ronson, but what you learn isn't of general cultural
No.
interest to your average person.
I go back to the point that his success as a producer and arranger for great artists is really what people are much more interested in than this.
Yeah, you want to know how he's worked with these people and
Yeah,
what he brought to the table and how
yeah,
he helped them make
yeah,
better music. That's what you
yeah.
want to know.
So maybe what we assume that maybe is a follow-up book,
There
which
will,
is
I'm sure there will be some. I'm hoping that he actually uh that he has some things to say that aren't so nice all the
yeah.
time.
We need a bit of spice to go with the nice.
Yeah, but not for the sake of, you know, not horrible for horrible's sake. Just something in the round, something rounded,
I've
something that won't necessarily help his CV.
yeah, this sounds like a sales advert for him.
Yeah, but all good DJs are salespeople because they're on stage. All
Hmm.
they've got is the records and the skill with mixing and
Yeah.
nothing else. So
Mhm.
where would Fatboy Slim be if he looked like me and was really boring?
Still playing with the house Martins.
Fatboy Slim
Still
six.
playing with the house
Yeah,
Martins. There you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So Fatboy Slim is a character
Mm.
when he's behind the decks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I accept that. Well, Graham, I'm so glad that the book I gave you has provoked several layers of debate there. We'll come briefly onto a topic I'm just keen to talk about, and then we'll come to our last topic of the evening. So I this week with Celestine went to the play called Murder for Two. It's
All right. Was it a murder just for you and Celestine then?
Well,
Laid on just for you
no,
too.
it was a nicely plenty of people there. This was we went to a matinee, so it was a matinee murder for two. And the
Hmm.
book is and the music by Joe Kinosian. The book and lyrics are by Kellen Blair, directed by Caroline Leslie. I think working at the Stephen Joseph Theatre for the first time. It's a two-hander, so hence it's murder for two, and cast of two. And so Tom Babbage will play precisely one role. He will play Marcus Moskovitz, who is looking into the murder. All the suspects, and in fact 12 characters in total, are played by Lucy Kjell, who has
Wow.
previously appeared in Cinderella at the Stephen Joseph Theatre, and has also appeared
I hope she's getting
in.
paid more for playing all those characters.
Well, I haven't put that question, and I suspect the answer is
Hmm.
no. Anyway, she was also in the 39 Steps, which of course requires massive amounts of multiple role playing. Now,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
I'm interested in this is that this is a kind of model. If theatres are always having to adapt, and I'm not suggesting that every show should be a two-hander. I'm not.
No.
I'm
No.
not. And I'm not saying that's the only reason for doing this. But if I say that not only does Lucy play 12 characters, they're both on stage the entire time. They aren't just playing characters, they're also being Foley artists creating the sound effects.
Wow.
And they are both really good piano players. Sometimes one will play the piano for the other to sing, and vice
Mhm.
versa. Sometimes they'll be both together at the piano. Sometimes they'll swap positions on the piano. That everything that could take place within this show, which is high energy from start to finish. I mean, for both of them. I mean, Lucy's performance. Obviously, I'm not in any way suggesting that Tom's performance is not equally impressive in its own way, but it is pretty remarkable to be playing and managing to make distinctive 12 characters. It was fun. It was madcap. It was in every way.
But what sort of style is it? Is it quite dark and sinister? Is it cozy
No,
crime? Is it
it's not.
light-hearted or is it a bit serious?
No,
What is it?
it's very much in the territory of somewhere like again like the 39 Steps, Patrick Barlow's adaptation of that. So
So, yeah.
it's it's frantic, and it's always that thing of gosh, how many roles can you play? How can they keep it going? So we've seen other shows do this, but rarely has it actually just been two. Although lip services work with the late Maggie Fox and Sue Riding would
Mm.
quite often try to do that. And of course, Patrick Barlow's work for National Theatre of Brent would make, again, two people on stage and then using the audience. So it's not alone in doing that. I think it was the fact that they also did the music as well. They sang
Mm.
and they danced. It was triple
It's
threat.
almost like they're auditioning for every type of role they could possibly get in their own careers.
There could be that, but it
Mm.
was hugely enjoyable because of that.
Mm-mm.
It was, and the directing, I should also say, by Caroline Leslie was done with great aplomb, and
Mm.
it's a
So
funny. It's a
is this a tour?
So now, what's interesting as well with this is that it is going to play Stephen Joseph Theatre, then a gap, and then
Yeah.
in June it'll be at the Bolton Octagon. So very much in keeping with what happens a lot now, which is that one theatre links up with another theatre to spread the cost. So in this case, Bolton was looking for a play for
Mm.
its June program, and contacted the Stephen Joseph Theatre to say, is anything further going to be happening with this production? And they said, well, actually,
Mm.
we would like to take this production. Would you agree to it? So they did. So
Yeah.
it ends up playing in more than one place, and which again I think is we've seen this happen a lot now in theatre, where often more than two companies join up for a production that goes on tour,
Yeah.
is rehearsed in one of the four theatres or whatever. And so is very important to theatres as well, to be able to share costs with other theatres. That's become
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
much become much the norm as well.
Yeah.
That is the case. But the
Just like
quality,
TV series now are co-productions between
yes,
Ireland, Britain,
yeah,
Belgium, Spain,
yeah.
Norway,
One other characteristic,
Australia.
yeah, one other characteristic with this, the way it's set is that it's done as a BBC broadcasting house radio studio performance. So
Mm.
they are playing it out as if they were recording it for radio. Hence, they're
Ah,
doing that. So you've even got that element of fun within the production.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Sounds
so
like it's been really, really well thought through.
absolutely. I mean, it's one of those shows you can see others taking it on for exactly the
Yeah,
reasons that actually commercially, it saves costs. It's just the two of them.
yeah,
You've got to hope that the venue would be providing a piano or whatever.
yeah. But
So
with a two-person cast, it
yeah,
has to have a good script by definition.
and this does have a good script.
Mm.
This is fast moving, witty script, with full of character, full of expression. Uses the audience well as well, so that the audience. And the other thing I should say that they do a lot of improvisation. So
Uh,
there's a possibility, inevitably, actually, because if you're playing 12 characters, the chances of something going wrong can be quite high. So there
mm.
is room for ad libbing, and there was ad libbing in the performance that we saw, and there has
So how
been.
long was the performance? How long was production?
So, if I recall this, the first half is surprisingly long and the second half surprisingly short. So you can't really call
Mm.
them halves. So the first part from memory was about 74 minutes, I think. And then
Wow, that is long. Yeah, yeah.
after the interval, it was about 35 minutes. So a much shorter second half.
Mm,
But
mm.
they explained that it felt a natural break to have where it was, which I kind of get, because actually the pace of the second half is even quicker and madder, and
Yeah,
it becomes even more madcap in its style. So actually, I think they needed that breathing space, that time, and then they really go for it in a big way in Act Two. So I would recommend this thoroughly. It's playing at the Stephen Joseph Theatre till the 18th of April. As I say, we'll be going to Bolton Octagon in June, but obviously closer to home is going to Scarborough,
mm, mm.
and at the Stephen Joseph Theatre. And yeah, I would absolutely recommend going and enjoying. As ever, I enjoy fish and chips as a recommendation in Scarborough, and then and then seeing a
Yeah,
show. So please,
excellent. This
take.
has been an advert by Scarborough Tourist Board.
I have not, however, mentioned which chip. Other fish and chip emporiums
Yeah.
are available. So, Graham, that's that one. Now, let's go with our last topic, which is Mr. John Lennon. Now, in 1974, he made the album Walks and Bridges. Were there any hit singles on Walks and Bridges?
Walls and bridges. Yeah. Yeah, well,
Walls and.
walls and bridge. Yeah, walls and bridges.
Oh,
Now,
so
walls
sorry. It
and
says here
bridges.
Graham Walks and Bridges. Why have I got it here?
Well, yeah, I was just playing around, but
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
yeah, it was a successful album. Like, got to number one in America. The
Yeah.
single "Whoever Gets You Through the Night" with Elton John got number one. Got to
Yeah.
number six in UK, and it was his return to commercial success after Mind Games, which had done not too well, although
Yeah.
still much better than the previous album, Sometime in New York City, which is a political album by John and Yoko about feminism, the IRA, Angela Davis, anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-Nixon, and it bombed. I mean, it
Yeah.
got to number 48 in America, the worst performance by
Oh
miles by
gosh.
a solo Beatle
Yeah.
in the early
Yeah.
70s. So Walsbridge's got back to form commercially, but it's never been highly regarded. It's been looked on as like, not terrible, but not great. So I played it the other day, first time in ages, and
Yeah.
it's a much better album than I remembered. It's also a
Mm.
much more interesting album. I would say in some ways it's actually quite a groundbreaking album because the sound of it combines the sort of like basic heartbeat minimalism of the first John Lennon proper soul album, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band from 1970, with a real strong funk, soul, blues, jazz instrumentation.
Mm.
And it's got 7 tracks which belong in the funk, soul, jazz, blues category. Now, in
Mm.
1974, famous white musicians did not do
Didn't do
disco
that.
albums
No.
in funk,
No.
soul, blues, and jazz.
No.
I mean, the only band doing that were the Bee Gees. Nobody else did that.
No. That's true.
Even the Stones weren't really doing that.
Mm.
And the album was released in September 1974. This came out 6 months before David Bowie did Young Americans, where he embraced
Oh yes.
funk, soul, blues in a slightly odd way, just like
Mm.
John Lennon's version of funk, soul, blues
Mm.
is slightly odd because it has slight undertones of psychedelia, and the pace of it sort of change. It sort of slides like it was recorded while he was on drugs, a bit like Young American's Boy album, apart
Mm.
from the 2 big hit singles. Also sounds, it seems to slide as it's going along. And the funny thing, what makes me think that David Bowie did actually like Walls and Bridges, and it did actually influence his change of direction on Young Americans, is that who was a guest musician and songwriter on the Young Americans album? John Lennon. So I think Walls and Bridges is not only a much better album than people give it credit for,
Yeah.
it was also ahead of its time and also influenced David Bowie. So I think it's about time it got given more respect.
And Bowie would have been in America at the same time as Lennon.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So that, well, it's not an album I really know at all.
If you couldn't quite call it a classic album,
Mm.
like the reason you would call Imagine from 1971 a classic album because it's got about 5 very famous songs in it. Walls and Bridges only has the 2 hit singles that are famous.
Mm.
Number
Mm.
Nine Dream, which is
Yeah.
a bit sort of psychedelic with
Yes.
strings,
Yeah.
and Whatever Gets You Through the Night, that upbeat funk disco number with Elton John.
Mm.
None of the rest are regarded as classic John Lennon songs.
No.
But
No.
when you play it again all these years later, it's quite a heavy album in terms of its lyrics
Yes.
and its feel, but it's got a very light touch. The musicians playing in it, like Nicky Hopkins and Jesse Ed Davis and Klaus
Mm.
Voormann and Jim Keltner, are really playing it in an understated fashion. So it's high quality. Even the tracks that aren't classic songs are very high quality. So I think it's a whisker away from being a classic album, and it's certainly a very good album. And I think if it was put out today by a 22-year-old, it'd be really successful.
I mean, it's not an album that's been subjected to a reissue, unlike quite a lot of Lennon's albums recently.
Well, not yet, but Yoko seems to be going through his whole back catalogue, so I
Mm.
would expect her to do the same thing, a sort of like £180 box set,
Oh yes.
with 8 CDs and 2 films and 6 books and
Yeah.
mugs, t-shirts, tickets, the lot.
Yeah.
I would expect that
Yeah.
to happen at some point.
Well, I wish you good night, Graham, and thank you for reintroducing me to John Lennon's Walls and Bridges. Thank you for reintroducing me to Garth Marenghi, and I thank you for being patient with reading Mark Ronson's Night People book and doing your best to find it more interesting than potentially it actually is. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, you're all thanks, Charles. So I'll take that. Thank you.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub production.